These are your Section 1 notes for our Budgeting and Financial Records unit. The word budget is used in government and in private business, and ordinary people like you and me use the word budget as well. Notice the definition of budgeting on your slide. According to the definition, you cannot have a budget without a savings plan. It is necessary to plan to lay aside some of your income to save for later use when preparing a budget. Let's take a look at the parts of a budget. If any of these parts are missing, you do not have a fully functional budget. This slide says a budget is a spending and savings plan. That means the word spending, the word saving, they are both two parts of your budgeting plan. Without the savings area, without the spending area, which we will later discuss as expenses, you do not have a fully functional budget. And if you do not have a fully functional budget, then you're not designed for success. At least not the type of success that leads to financial solvency. And the word solvency simply means financial stability. When preparing a budget, there are some steps that you need to consider. Estimate means to come to an approximate amount based on what you have earned in the past. Then you have to decide how much of your money you would like to save or can really afford to save. During step 3, you estimate your expenses based on what you have paid in the past. Finally, you balance your budget by making adjustments. These adjustments usually come after you have been on the budget for a while and can better decide what the actual expenses will be under normal circumstances. And remember that normal circumstances do not account for personal emergencies or things like medical expenses that happen unexpectedly. Now, speaking of those things that come up that are not planned for, that take chunks of your income that you really had other plans for, brings us to the type of expenses that you will encounter during your adjustment period. And that adjustment period simply means I'm going through some things now in my life that I did not plan for when I developed my budget. And you have two types of expenses. On this particular slide, you look at fixed expenses. These are things that you have to pay regardless of what's going on in your life, like rent, utilities, or that cell phone bill. Also, it includes variable expenses or things that change in amount and type depending on what's going on in your life, like a doctor bill. Now, this is a picture of a net worth statement. It is very important that you keep accurate records when you are recording your income and expenses. Now, it may not be that in your life you may want to do one of these net worth statements, but you will keep a record of your assets. And I want you to notice what these assets are: checking account, savings account, the value of your car, your personal items, and other things like jewelry that you have. All of those things help develop, what you're worth. Now, assets are things of value that you own. Liabilities, those are bills. You can put your expenses under that. And your net worth, which is the difference between the two, is what you are worth. Like, what am I worth once I look at what I take in and once I look at what I pay out? If I'm in the red, it may seem like I'm not worth much. So start early in your life planning and looking at those things to make sure that you plan to have a financial future that is stable. Now, consider the following questions. These questions will help prepare you for week 1 quiz. Now listen carefully. Now, the first question is, what is the first step in budgeting? Answer is estimate. Estimate your total expected income for a period of time. How are fixed expenses different from variable expenses? Well, fixed expenses are things you have to pay regardless of what's going on in your life. And variable expenses are things that change in amount and even in type depending on the events that occur in your life. And the last bulleted item says, why should you prepare a net worth statement? A net worth statement helps you see what you have bought, what you owe, and how much you are worth. And that's the difference between the two. It is very necessary to know how financially stable you are at all times.